Good morning.
Hello.
Hi. So good to see you. Oh
Yeah, you too.
my gosh, there's all these. Have you guys noticed that there's all these live videos popping up on your Instagram when you're trying
So,
to do something else?
yeah, especially it's like at 10 and then 11. Like if you do something on the hour, then you're
Yeah,
competing with like 10 other live videos.
exactly, exactly. Well, I'm glad that we're on our live video now, and that's I figured out how to connect on here.
Yeah, totally. I thought about that. I was like, she's never done an Instagram live. I was like, we didn't talk about it. So
But we figured it out. Somehow
we
you always
figured it
figure it out.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Well, I'm excited for this, and I know people are joining, and I'm sure people will come and go, but maybe we'll just hop into it to get going.
amazing. That sounds perfect. Got my coffee, ready to go.
Same. I got some tea.
Perfect. Virtual cheers.
Yes, cheers. Do you want to start maybe just introducing yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and your business, just so people can get to know you.
Perfect. That sounds great. So I am Jana. It's so great to see all of you on here joining and connecting today. I am the founder of All of Her Business. And so I provide a blend of business and life coaching specifically to women who are looking to transition out of employment and into entrepreneurship. So I help people build really holistic, conscious businesses while really caring for themselves and also transforming those, limiting belief systems or stories or fears that we all have, and the ones that like to show up when we go to take a big leap in our lives. So that's really how I help women, and I absolutely love what I do. And it's exciting. It's exciting being an entrepreneur and seeing things evolve continuously, even month over month. I notice that things just always look different, which is exciting and always something to adapt to. So it keeps me on my
Totally.
toes.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think being able to talk to other people, that also helps it evolve because everyone has
Hmm.
such good ideas and different ideas. And so having that
Yeah.
community and open communication really helps as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so today we're going to talk a little bit about like what's happening right now.
Hmm.
I mean, we don't need to talk, like everyone knows what's happening right now, but we're going to relate back to it
Yeah.
in how to really like deal with this and as a individual and make ourselves feel a little bit better. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's we just did a podcast too for anyone who is interested. We did a longer form of this conversation, a podcast that came out this morning. So it is the link in my bio or on my stories if anyone is interested.
So
So let's talk about why it's important to create moments of joy and nourishment. So what does that mean to you and why is it important?
Mm, such a good question. So I think especially during times like these when we are all dealing with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of rapid change that we weren't necessarily prepared for, I think it's just so important to have those practices that you can lean into to feel a little bit more supported and nourished and grounded during this season. And I really think it's all about, for each of us, being able to honor our experience as we go through this season and really tuning into what it is that we need and what feels most authentic in each moment. So sometimes, nourishment could look like creating time and space for yourself and for you to go for a drive and let those emotions out and feel into the very real feelings that are present right now, which could be, grief or disappointment or sadness or even anger. And then also knowing that you can feel those feelings and they're completely valid. And when you feel ready, you can start to shift into a better feeling space, or you can start to cultivate and create these little practices that feel really life-giving during this season so that you can stay grounded amidst all of the change and the uncertainty that's been going on in our world.
Right. And I think it also involves changing maybe what you were doing before
Mhm.
and the moments that you were creating before and becoming self-aware of how those moments worked at that time. But now we
Right.
need probably a different set of practices to have the same
Mhm.
feelings because it's such an interesting time.
And I think that's such a good point, Rachel. It's like what worked for us last month might not be working this month. And so we maybe really need to up some of those self-care practices in order to just feel grounded and stable and return to some of those feelings of normalcy during this time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And do you want to walk us through some of the practices that you've started doing and maybe your morning routine or your daily routine, just so people
Hmm.
can get some ideas? I'll share mine after, but you can
Yeah.
start.
Definitely, definitely. I'm always excited to talk about the good old morning routines. So,
Totally.
yeah, and for me, like I've always been someone who is really a morning person. So I'm not super productive at night. I've never been a night owl, but I just naturally wake up really early and typically have my most energy in the morning. So what I normally do when I get up is I will actually go into meditation for anywhere from even 5 to 10 minutes to 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour if I'm really getting into it. But I just take time to get centered and aligned and really tune in with where I'm at and how I'm feeling. And I find that that practice can be really grounding and helps me to stay really rooted and kind of acts as the foundation for the rest of my day. And I do
Right.
that, yeah, and I do that before I check my phone or any technology. And this is something that's been hard to do because I think with social media and every time we look at a post, we get that dopamine hit. It's so tempting to go right to that when we wake up. But I find that just creating that buffer between sleep and technology will make a really big difference. And then also a lot of what I do in the mornings is I try to be really conscious about what I'm putting into my body. So I'll often start with a couple of really big glasses of water, but water that is filled 3/4 with cold water and then a quarter of actually hot water. So I actually drink lukewarm water first thing in the morning, and I kind of use this as a flush to detox and just really rejuvenate myself after being in bed and being asleep all night. So I'll drink the water, and then normally after that, I'll have a smoothie, and then I'll eat a heavier breakfast about an hour later. So I'm really conscious about kind of building up what I put in my body and going from light to heavy. And I've just especially found that when I start with the water in the morning, the 2 glasses, it just helps me feel so much more energized during the day. Like I can always tell a difference. And so now I'm like, okay, Jana, you got to get your water, go get the water in you. So you feel ready for the day. So those are some of my big morning practices. And then especially during this season, I've found for myself that taking salt baths in the evening has been something that has been so sacred for me. It's been a way for me to create a moment where I just get to be immersed in water. I get to detox. I get to read a book if I want to, or I just kind of sit with my own thoughts. And that's something that's been really nourishing and grounding and helpful, in addition to getting out in nature several times a day. Just even spending time, walking without my phone or without podcasts. I love my podcasts, but it's nice sometimes to actually just get out there and look up at the sky and actually take in the moments of beauty that are around us that perhaps for a long time we've been missing because we've just been going onto the next thing, onto the next thing. And so,
Right. And I even think just right now that having the sun out, because I know like we live in
yeah,
Calgary, so we're very spoiled, and
yeah.
it's been cloudy and snowy for a few days. And so yesterday when the sun came out, I literally just went on my deck and just like was like, oh, vitamin D, I need the sun,
Yeah.
like because you just feel so much better. And so it is those like moments where you just have to like
Mm.
stop for a second and be like, oh, I appreciate the sun and being outside and the fresh air, especially now that it's getting warmer and spring is coming.
Exactly. Thank goodness, hey?
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. And what else have you found has been really working for you to help you stay connected during this time?
I found actually, before I say what I'm doing, I have one question for you
Ooh,
because I would love to have a meditation practice. Like, I know that it's good for, like, I know that
yeah.
you should be doing it, but I just haven't. So, do you like have a space that you do it in? Do you have like a pillow you sit on? Do you use an
Mm,
app or do you just like use your brain? Like, just walk us through that because I'm
yeah.
interested.
Yeah, that is such a good question. And I think for anyone who's starting out with meditation, it's important to remember that there's no right way to do it. So for me, I have a corner of my room and I have a couple pillows actually that I always sit on, which I love. So I'll get my pillows, I'll sit down. Sometimes if I'm feeling like it, I will make some herbal tea for myself, or I'll sit with a crystal, or I'll burn some Palo Santo. I think it's kind of about also taking what it is that you feel you need in that moment, but it can be just as simple as sitting in the corner of a room or sitting next to a window and taking some time to get still and to connect with your body. I know for some people, it can be really helpful to use some of the guided meditations on the apps when you're first starting out. For others, you can kind of do a body scan. So you can, just connect with, your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes, your nose, and go through your whole body and just do a really beautiful scan. In my personal experience, I found that my meditations can look different depending on the day. So there are some days when I'm able to really get into that space of stillness and a space of no thoughts, which is really beautiful. And there's other days where my mind is just racing and it feels like I'm talking to myself throughout my entire meditation. And so for me, it's super open-ended, and it kind of goes where it needs to go. And I think I always say, as long as I'm sitting down, that's the meditation. And even if it doesn't look perfect, or I'm like, oh, I didn't feel like I got into that really blissful space, it's still okay, because that was just how the practice needed to go that day.
Right. I love that. Yeah. And listening to
Yeah.
just what your body needs and your mind needs. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have too many thoughts. And I even feel that letting your thoughts just like go can also
Mm-hmm.
help. Like I do that before I go to bed, which I guess technically would be like meditation, but before you go to sleep, I just let my mind just like go through everything it needs to go through, like not keep track of it, not be like, oh, I have this like huge list, but just be like, what are you doing
Right.
tomorrow? What like, and just
Yeah.
let it go, which like lets it out, and then I can sleep, which is
Mm-hmm.
has been really nice. And I used to be like, oh, you can't do that. Like you're going to get yourself worked up and then you're going to have to remember all these things. But if you just
Right.
let it like be, then it makes it a lot easier.
Totally. And I also keep actually a notebook right beside my bed, because sometimes I'll find as I'm falling to sleep, I get the most interesting ideas in life and business, or, there's just different things I'm thinking of. So I'll actually have that notebook there with a pen, so I can just quickly jot it down, and then it doesn't have to stay in my brain, but I get to put it somewhere, and then I can fall asleep.
Do you want to know a fun fact about that? Just a side note. So
Yeah,
I
tell
just
me.
listened to a podcast about, it was like a brain surgeon, and he was talking about the moment before you're sleeping and you get all these like crazy ideas because you're like
Oh.
one foot's in your like dream brain. I mean, there's like chemical names for it, but I don't know. Your
Yeah, yeah.
dream brain, and
Yeah,
one
yeah.
foot in your
That
like
makes
real
sense.
life brain.
Yeah.
And that's where like the moments come before you fall asleep. And so, the movie Inception, where they
Yes.
like to wake themselves up, they're like sitting on a chair and they have to like fall backwards to like get
Right.
out of the dream. So
Yeah.
apparently that's because that's how Thomas Edison
What?
came up with all of his ideas. So he would set himself on a chair and have a notebook. And then right before he'd fall asleep, he would lean back and his chair would fall. So he'd wake up and then was able to write down all of his crazy ideas.
There you go.
That's
Amazing.
it. That's the trivia for today.
That's very, very interesting. I love these fun facts.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. And now every time that someone talks about it, I feel like I need to share it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, those ideas can be brilliant because they're coming in between those two phases.
exactly. If that's how Thomas Edison did it, then I think we all can do
I think we
it.
can all, yeah, 100%.
Um, yeah, okay, so my morning routine, now that we're back on track with some trivia. So we're very similar. We do very, very similar things. I don't have the meditation practice, but I do wake up. I am happy to say that I've been in the habit of not checking my phone for a long time. I think because my whole job is on my phone, that
Right.
I know that as soon as I look at it, it's not just like Instagram, it's like my emails, and then my workday starts as soon as I look at it. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty good at not doing that. I'm also a morning person, so I don't need to like lay in bed and will myself to get up. Like as soon as my alarm goes off, like I can just get up, and it's easy. And so I get up and I also have a huge glass of water. Mine's cold, but I put lemon in it, and it's like a big
Mm-hmm.
glass, and I'm not allowed to have coffee. I'm not allowed to do anything until I finish the water, because same things, you like get distracted and whatever, but you need that
Yeah.
hydration. And I think having just like the detox, like you said, having that, it's a good start to the day, especially if you struggle with drinking water, which I don't. I drink tons of water, but I think a lot of people do struggle with drinking enough water.
Mm-hmm.
That at least then you're starting your day off with water, which I think is a great habit to get
Right.
into. So I do
Yeah.
that, and then I have to let my dog out and feed my dog, and then I will make a cup of coffee, and usually I put in Love Your Guts, or the Gut Lab, I think is what they're called.
Sorry, I feel like I
No,
keep
that's okay.
falling over. Clearly, I'm new at this.
You need like a tripod to like
I
hold
need
it.
a tripod, 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've got it kind of, you would laugh if you saw this whole setup. There's like a box and books and my laptop holding up my
Right.
phone. So
My
we're
laptop's
figuring
holding
it
mine
out.
up too, so
There
I
you go.
understand.
Perfect. Sorry, keep going.
Oh
You
no,
can
that's
let the
okay.
dog out.
So yeah, so dog out, and I do make coffee, and I put in Love Your Guts. They have like a
Nice.
rise elixir, which is like I think it's like chaga mushroom and lion's mane and something
Mm,
else, a whole bunch of like little things, and then I put it in the coffee. On the weekends, I'll drink bulletproof coffee because I just love bulletproof coffee, but
mm,
I am trying to get away from drinking butter in the morning, and so I'll just have that as a treat on the weekends. But so I'll have my coffee, and I actually spend like 10 minutes cleaning the kitchen, which I think is just like a detox of my mind, to like organize my mind, that I just put away
hmm
the dishes, I'll empty the dishwasher, like kind of just make it like I like when the kitchen is clean. And so it's not that it's dirty because I clean it before I go to bed too, but
Yeah.
just like I just kind of organize things while I drink my water and like my coffee's being made. And then I'll sit down and I will do one work thing that I like really needed to get done that I probably procrastinated
Mm,
yesterday. Like if it's like a content calendar, something that's like going to take me like an hour or whatever, I'll sit down and get it done. So at least then I know that that's off the plate. And
right.
then I take my dog for a walk, which now that it's getting nicer out, it's way better. But even obviously when it's cold, he needs to walk. And so that's the time. And in the morning, I don't bring a podcast. Just like you said, I just do
Yeah.
it without my AirPods in, without a podcast. Like I just walk and enjoy the air and the sunshine or the snow or whatever it is. Like if it is cold, you're just like, well, like I appreciate the fact that like I live somewhere that I can walk outside onto these paths, even though it's minus 30 out.
Right.
You know, and it's just like
Yeah.
it is like I don't do a gratitude journal, I don't have the meditation, but I think those are where you're just like that's the gratitude practice, is just being outside,
Mm,
being like thank God that I can be out here, especially now where it's
right. Right.
I was just reading the question. We'll answer that
Yeah.
in 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's usually we go for the walk and then I come back and then I sit down and work again before, and I'll have breakfast and everything. But I same thing, kind of repeating what you said, but I do the water and then when I come back after my like I've had the coffee, I'll have bone broth to drink, which is kind of just like an in between. Like it's still warm and cozy, but then you are getting a little bit of the nourishment with the collagen and the
Right.
protein and stuff like that. And
Right.
then
Right.
usually like half an hour or whatever, then I'm starving. And so then I'll make breakfast and have
Then
like
you're ready.
oatmeal and eggs. And then that's the day. Especially
Amazing.
now that this answers the question. The question is, how has your morning routine changed since social distancing? And for me, it's just having that whole time to do it. Like this has been my ideal morning routine forever. And some days I would do it, but most of the days I'd get up and go to spin, which was my meditation and was my routine. That I would go to spin and then I'd sit and like chat with my dad at coffee and then I'd do some work. And like that was a routine. But I think this one is
Mhm.
much more calming and slow than getting up and just jumping into a spin class, which I really liked. But now that I'm experiencing this like slowness, that I think my brain and my body is much happier with the way I'm doing it now.
It's funny how sometimes we don't realize that other ways of doing things can be really supportive until we're forced to do them another way and get creative, and then we say, "Oh, this is actually really nourishing for me," and it's not something I realized before.
Totally. Well, because before, and I think um, this is a whole other conversation, but how we were living our lives before, that it was so busy. So in my head, having a super busy, intense, loud morning routine was just that's just the way it was. And like if you get up earlier and you exercise earlier, then you have more time to like do more things
Right?
later in
It's
the
like
day,
more is
which
better.
exactly, which like
Yeah.
at the time it seemed normal because that's just what we were always doing. But now that seems outrageous that you would like
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like obviously we're burning out and having like bad sleeps and not feeling great and not having enough energy because if you just listen to yourself say that, like it sounds wild. Like, you know, like you're doing way too
Right.
many things and now we're still getting the same things done without having that like huge surge of cortisol in the morning.
Right, exactly. And I think that we're learning that we can be just as productive and just as creative, but it doesn't have to be, we don't have to be always running. We can be intentionally walking and moving through the things that we need to move through without making it a race. And
Definitely.
yeah, and I think even for myself, like my practices are still relatively consistent compared to how they were before. And I think also just being an entrepreneur, you have a little more time and a little more spaciousness. Again, different people's experiences may vary, but I found for myself, I've had more of that space to actually reconnect with who I am and create those pockets of time when I need them. But I've been finding, especially over the last month, I've needed to really check in with myself in the mornings and actually say, okay, how am I feeling and what would feel most supportive for me today? And sometimes that looks like creating a really gentle schedule for myself and even writing in, okay, I'm going to make my bed and shower and, get myself breakfast, and then I'm going to take care of this piece of work today. Then I'm going to go for that walk. And sometimes I've just needed that because there have been some days where I felt really aimless and kind of lost. There have been other days where I've felt really creative, and I've been able to work on a new project in a really beautiful way that feels really, aligned, and I feel really connected to the work, and that's been great. But I think that for me, it's been all about really tuning into where am I at this morning? How am I feeling? And what do I need right now? Because, like you were saying, Rachel, I think that we've been really in this kind of place in life where it's been, okay, I've got to go, 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 produce, to make more money, to buy more things that I don't really need. And it's like the cycle just keeps going and going. And so for many of us, we're now kind of unplugging from that cycle and recognizing, what does life look like when it can be more simple? And how can I honor this experience for myself, even though it can feel really foreign? And I think we've all had moments where it's been really uncomfortable to adjust. But again, it's like, how can we allow ourselves to shift into this new space, feel what we need to feel, and also make sure that we are really taking care of ourselves in that process?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's interesting you just like the way you said it. I thought about it this past weekend. I struggled really hard with, I didn't really know what the issue was, but on Friday I just woke up and same thing. It was just like I was felt stressed and I was kind of in a bad mood and I was taking out on people.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of tried to go through my day and like get work done and like do it how I would normally do it. And then by Sunday I was just like, no, like Chris didn't want to talk to me. Nobody was like wanted to be around me. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what the issue was. And I thought it was stress or like because you're losing clients and obviously it's a stressful time for everybody, but
Right.
I didn't feel stressed. And so I was just like, what is happening? Like, why can't I do anything and why there's no motivation? And so Sunday afternoon, I was like, okay, like you need to like deal with yourself. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, what, like going outside is obviously not going to do it because then I have to walk my dog and it seems like a responsibility. I don't want to work out because then that seems hard. And so I allowed myself to just like lounge and watch TV and I was watching music videos and I was just like basically doing nothing for the whole afternoon. And then I went for dinner at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously self isolation. It's all fine.
Yeah.
But then when I came home and I woke up yesterday, I felt so much better. And I think the transition that you just mentioned, I think that was like my tipping point between, it
Mm-hmm.
was almost like a detox, like you're detoxing from your old lifestyle and you're coming into this new, like more
Mm-hmm.
slow, mindful. And I think this weekend was kind of just like the hump that I needed to get over it, to be like, okay, like it's going to be okay. And
Right.
I think my body was just like, okay, you got it all out of you. We can't be stressed about this anymore. Like we're good because now I
Yeah.
feel like I'm looking forward to the week being like, oh, I only have like an IG live or I have like one to do
Right.
thing. Like it seems okay. And I'm okay with it now. And so I think it was the transition to get from that busy, overwhelming lifestyle into a
Mm-hmm.
more slow down and being able to really take it in and enjoy what's happening right now, which I know people like, I'm lucky to say that I can enjoy this time and have the time. I know there's people with like much bigger problems right now, but it was just a very interesting transition this weekend between what was happening and what I needed to do to get through it, and then how I've come out on the other side yesterday.
Right. And I think that's so amazing the way that you're describing this experience, because I've found that there is so much power in allowing ourselves to break down and, allowing ourselves to go through this experience where we feel like the, certainty that we once had is no longer in place. And, how do we be with all of that, and how do we move through this as best we can? And I think it's just a season where everyone is doing the best they can. We are all having, days or moments where we don't feel like ourselves, we don't feel secure. And I think that just moving through this season and allowing yourself to feel to feel grounded when you can feel grounded, or to feel good when you can feel good, and allow yourself to go to that space too. Because I think especially during this time, there are feelings around, there's all this happening in the world, I feel guilty for feeling good. But I think that it's important to have those moments where you actually do feel realigned and reconnected. And you can maintain just that sense of alignment within yourself while also honoring, like we were talking about, your experience.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And do you have anything else to add? Maybe some advice for people to who need to create these moments of nourishment or joy? Do you have any like last
Mm.
tidbits or advice?
Yeah. I think the tuning in and checking in with yourself can be really important. And also even looking at perhaps creating a list for yourself, a list of things that you lean on to feel more grounded during this season. And keep in mind that it can actually be really simple practices that make the biggest difference. So I think sometimes in the past, one of the things that I would do is I wouldn't go outside for that 10-minute walk or, hop on the bike for 10 minutes because I'd say, well, it's only 10 minutes and it doesn't matter. But I think especially during this time, these micro moments that we can create for ourselves matter more than we even know. And I think when we can create just these little moments, whether it's a 10-minute walk outside or go for an hour walk outside, whatever feels good for you. Or even we were talking about this on the podcast and we dive into a lot of this much deeper in the episode we created. But even being more intentional about creating your morning coffee and creating it from that place of intention rather than, oh, I just got to get caffeinated and the experience feels really transactional and quick. Or taking that salt bath. Sometimes even I wake up in the mornings and I'm just feeling a bit overwhelmed and I hop in the bath and it changes the trajectory of my day. And I think that also, recognizing that when we are caring for ourselves and when we are nourished, the rest of the work that we do in the world and our relationships that we hold can thrive. And I think especially in the way in which we've been working in the past has been, well, I'm just going to work to go. And I leave myself behind. And now I think it's about, well, how do I honor this experience? How do I take care of myself so that I can show up in a much bigger way, with the work that I do or with the relationships that I hold, so we can all move through this time with a little bit more ease and a little bit more gentleness.
Right. I totally agree. And I think to go off of that, it's a time that you're allowed to be a little bit more selfish than maybe you were before, mostly because you're in your house by yourself. So you have time to think about yourself. But I think because there all is this extra time, that creating that space and that awareness, you don't have to feel bad about being selfish about it and saying, I need the 10 minutes outside and I need the 10 minutes moving,
Mm-hmm.
and or whatever your 10 minutes is, you're focused on
Right.
whatever. Being present, I guess, is what we're saying, to be present for the 10 minutes to just realign yourself. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we're now coming to that realization that obviously it's different because we're at home and you're not like sitting in an office full of people, but having those moments to yourself changes the way the rest of your day is going to go, or the rest of the hour. So being selfish and taking the time for you, whether it's the 10 minutes or the whole afternoon or whatever is you need, I think that that's changing the mindset and making it easier to deal with what's
Mm-hmm.
happening right now.
Exactly. And I think knowing that we can align in an instant. We can shift our energy, we can shift, our headspace in a moment. And we have that power to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. I think
So
that
good
was
chatting with you.
really, yeah. And I think if you want to listen to us dive deeper, Jen and I can talk for hours and hours. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a podcast that we put out today about similar things, diving into it. And so where can people find you and all of your information?
All of the information about all of her business. So
Yeah.
I have Instagram, and I know Rachel's tagged me in a few of the posts, or you can find me on my website, allofherbusiness.com, which I actually just relaunched this week. So it's a really exciting time. And I think this season has also been an interesting one for me, just to even get back in touch with my creativity and some of those deeper parts of myself that have been laying dormant for so long. So that's been exciting. But yeah, those are the places where you can find me.
Amazing. And are you doing your live tomorrow at 10, your coffee? What is
Yes.
that? Jenna, just give a quick little thing in
Yeah,
case people want to join.
definitely. So um, it was really amazing because, you know, even for me in this season, there was something that I was really excited about planning to launch and put out there. And my friend Tracy's actually hopped on right now and just commented, "Hi, Tracy." But a couple of weeks ago, you know, we had this conversation. I was feeling really overwhelmed because I was, you know, wanting to launch something and put out this new program, but it wasn't feeling totally authentic. And I had a phone call with Tracy, and it really, really helped me to actually feel realigned and reconnected. And after that phone call, I remembered thinking, you know, I just want to have coffee with people. And so I created, I have a Facebook group that was a private Facebook group, but I've now opened it up. And I'm going live on there on Wednesday mornings just to have a coffee and chat to help people feel a little bit more grounded in this season. So that's happening every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. over on Facebook. And there is a link in my Instagram profile if you want to come on over and join us for these chats.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that was great, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Amazing. I can't wait. Take care and have a beautiful day, everyone. And yeah, just continue to honor this experience for yourself, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.